Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to welcome you all to Congregation Beth-El, whether you're joining us via live stream or via Zoom, across space and transcending time. We come together to celebrate this morning with Ezra as he becomes Bar Mitzvah. I am Rabbi Dennis Sasso, and on the bima with me is Cantor Melissa Cohen and our organist Charles Manning. Of course, we extend a very special welcome this morning to our Bar Mitzvah, Ezra McAfee, to his dear parents, and to the McAfee and Katzman extended families, and to all of you who are joining us by Zoom or live stream. I'd like to direct your attention to our Beth-El613.org or BEZ613.org for access to our prayer book, Lev Shalem, and other resources that will be used during the service today. Of course, we realize that many of you would have wanted to attend this celebration in person, but given the requirements of social distancing and the limitations of travel, we are grateful for the virtual technology that brings us together. I'd like to extend a special word of gratitude to our Executive Director, Sherry Lip-Levine, and our Communications Coordinator, Jackie Goldstein, who keep us connected virtually this morning, and to our Beth-El staff for their technical assistance and for maintaining our facility above and beyond the necessary protocols. On this Shabbat morning, while observing the necessary public health directives that will ensure the health and safety of all, we will yet overcome social distancing with the warm feelings of affection for Ezra and for his dear parents, Jordan and Dan, grandparents, and immediate family. So we turn to our Shabbat morning service and warn Ezra that this service will zoom by all too fast. So enjoy the moment and savor the memories. Shabbat Shalom and Mazal Tov. Our service will begin with Ma Tovu. The cantor will chant this selection of biblical verses to give gratitude for our ability to come together in worship. Ma Tovu in the prayer book, page 101. The service continues on page 103, and Ezra will lead us in the chanting of the morning blessings, the Birchot HaShachar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech bivina, lechavhin ben yom uvein laila.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzalmo.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asah li kol sorki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael bigvura.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael betifara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanotein laya koah.
Amen.
Ezra continues on page 122, Baruch She'amar, a celebration of God's creative powers.
Baruch she'amar v'chaya holam, Baruch hu. Baruch oseh bereshit,
Baruch Omer Ve'oseh.
Baruch gozer kayim,
Baruch Merachem al haaretz.
Baruch merachem al habriyot,
Baruch Meshalem Sachar Tov Lireyav.
Baruch Elad v'kayam lanetzach,
Baruch Poder Umatzil. Baruch Shemo.
And we now turn to page 148. I invite you to rise in your places as Ezra leads us in the Chatzi Kaddish to transition to the morning prayers.
Yikadal ve'yikada shemei Rabba,
Amen.
Beth-EL divrach hirute ve'amlich malchute, B'chayechon uvyomechon uchayedecho Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman karitz ve'imeru. Amen. Vehishmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitramam ve'yitnaseh yithadar ve'yaleh ve'yalal shemei dekudesha borechu le'elam minchol birchata ve'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damirat ve'olam ve'imeru. Amen.
I invite you to remain standing for the Baruch Hu, the call to morning prayer, and through the Ve'ahavta. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvoreh choshech, oseh shalom uvoreh takun.
Praised are you, Adonai, sovereign of time and space, who forms light, creates darkness, and brings harmony to all creation. We turn to the Shema, the affirmation of faith, page 155.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבביך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך וים.
Remember then to observe my mitzvot and be holy unto your God. I am the eternal your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, am your God in truth.
אני אדוני אלוהיך באמת, אדוני אלוהיך באמת.
You may be seated. We turn on in the prayer book to page 158 and recite the Mi Chamocha, the words which Moses, Miriam, and our ancestors sang on their journey to freedom. We invite you to rise once again, and we turn to page 159. The cantor will introduce the Amidah with the opening blessings, and then we will continue prayer silently for a period until the conclusion of the silent meditation.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Eloi Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sahara, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei HaKol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'emot, U'mevi'u el ibnei bneihem, Leman Shemo ve'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach u'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai Magin Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sara, atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mekayim etim atah Rab leHoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid Hashem, Mekalkel ha'chaim bechesed, Mekayim etim berachamim rabim, Somech notlim beruvei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayim emunato lishenei ahar. Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, umidon melach, melech minit u'machayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, שמך בעולם, כשם מה שמעתי שמותו בשמי מרן, ככתוב על יד נביאיך, וכרזה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך הארץ כבודו, אז וקודש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת הצבעים, לעומתן ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקום המלכינו תופיע, וצילו פלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך, מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב ימינו, לעולם בעת תשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. דהינינו תראנה, תראנה מלכותך, כדבר אמור בשיר וזכר על ידי דוד, משיח צדקך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, בשבתך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם הבא, כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, וקדוש אתה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, ברוך אתה אדוני.
We continue with a moment of silent prayer. You may offer the words of tradition through page 166 or the meditation that is in your own heart. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, Adonai, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. May be seated. Cantor continues on page 167, Kaddish Shalem. Morning, Shabbat Shalom. Before we turn to the Torah service, I'd like to offer a brief word of introduction to this morning's reading. The first thing that I would like to say is that the Bible is not a book. The Bible is a books. It's an anthology. It's a collection of books, 24 in total. That's why we call it the Book of Books. Not only because it is a supreme book, but because it is a collection of books. And it has three parts to it. The Torah, which is what is contained in the scroll that we keep in the Aron HaKodesh. And then there is a second section known as the prophets, Nevi'im in Hebrew. And it is from there that the Haftarah is chanted after the Torah is read from the scroll. And then there is a third section known as the writings, or the Ketuvim, and that contains books of teaching and wisdom like Psalms and Proverbs and Job and Ecclesiastes. So this is a collection of books divided into three parts. We call the total collection in Hebrew the Tanakh, with attention to the three parts that make it up. The Ta for Torah, the Ne for Nevi'im, the Ke for Ketuvim. So today, we start the Torah from the very beginning. And that is the name of the first book, Genesis, in the beginning. Many of the names that we associate with the Bible are in Greek language, because the Bible was first translated from Hebrew into Greek in the 3rd century before the Common Era. So Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, these are all Greek terms. So if you should ever say that the Bible is Greek to you, you would be making a true observation. Today we start with the very beginning. Bereshit is the Hebrew name and the opening word of the Torah. It means either in the beginning or at the beginning of God's creation. And what we have in the book of Genesis, which has 50 chapters, is an early part, chapters 1 through 11, which give us the cosmic origins and the prehistory of humanity. And then chapters 12 through 50 tell us of the beginning of our people's history, the patriarchs and the matriarchs of Israel, starting with Abraham and Sarah and continuing through the story of Joseph. Now, many of these stories have a great deal in common with the early myths and stories of other peoples in the ancient Near East, the Mesopotamians, the Sumerians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, but they are told in the light of the Israelite experience. The stories of Genesis that we read this and next week are about essentially how did things come to be the way they are. Light and darkness, heaven and earth, dry land and water, and also about how come humans are the way we are. In some ways similar to animals, yet also different. How come men and women are similar and yet alike? How come there is evil and violence in the world? How come people speak different languages? These are some of the questions that the Torah sets out to address in narrative form. They're kind of Rudyard Kipling just so stories. Their purpose is not to teach us science, but values. If you go to the book of Genesis to learn about the scientific origins of the universe, you will learn bad science, because that's not their intention. The basic question is, what impact do these stories have on human character? What do they teach us about relationships, about responsibility to others, and our responsibility to the world in which we live? As we read the opening chapters of Genesis, it is clear that the Bible presumes the creation of a good and orderly universe. But humanity doesn't seem to live up to these godly expectations. So the early chapters of Genesis tell us of the deterioration and disappointment of the original divine project. After several failed efforts, God starts again. And in chapter 12, the book of Genesis moves from the big picture, the cosmic origins of the world, to the small scale, from the story of the universe to the story of one person, one family that will give birth to one people, Abraham and Sarah and their descendants. And the rest is history, and we are part of that story. And as Ezra stands on the bima this morning to read his Torah and Haftorah portion, he is becoming part of that story. Because I think of the Bible as more than a book of laws and rituals, of poetry and history. It is our first family album, the earliest record of our people's and humanity's origins and their efforts to find purpose and meaning in life and in history. Now, there are several key themes that are central to these early chapters in Genesis. The first key theme is that God creates the world out of chaos, out of a disarray and bewilderment of things comes the universe, the orderly universe with new possibilities. Creation is not the making of something out of nothing, but of something new out of everything that was before. You remember the Sound of Music song, nothing comes from nothing. And that is true. We always create something out of previous material, out of previous experience, out of previous memory. The second important theme is that language is creation's tool. God speaks the world into being. And God said, and there was. A reminder that our own words have creative powers, or if we are careless, destructive power. Our words can create or destroy. They can hurt or they can heal. They can bless or they can curse. The third idea is that nature and human nature are interdependent. We are part of a greater reality. We are not to abuse nature and alienate ourselves from it. The human being, Adam, comes from Adama, the earth. Earth, stars, and humans share the ingredients of a common cosmic DNA and destiny. And another important idea is that time is holy. The Sabbath is the culmination of creation, and it is the first thing declared holy in the Torah. We are reminded that not things, but time is holy, and the relationships that we engage in time that give life its depth, its purpose, its meaning, and its sanctity. So this is a holy place, but more importantly, this is a holy moment that Ezra will carry with him for the rest of his life. Ezra, the Bible begins this week with two basic questions. God's question to Adam, where are you? And then God's question to Cain, where is your brother? These are the fundamental questions of becoming human. Judaism asks of us the same questions today. Where are we? What are we making of our lives? Where is our brother, our sister, our fellow human being in the scale of our existence? What are we making of life in relationship to others? And so the Bible begins with questions. It is a book about questions, much more so than about answers. The Torah is not a ready-made package given once and for all. It is the quest of Israel, our search for God in every generation. The Bible is not the last word. It is the first word, an ongoing conversation. And with today's Torah portion, on your Bar Mitzvah Shabbat, Ezra, you pick up this conversation. We know that you will be an important part of our people's dialogue with the God of history. Mazel tov. Shabbat Shalom. We are going to introduce the Torah service on page 168. We ask you to turn for that, and in a moment we're going to invite Bryce, Ezra's sister, and the grandparents, Mac and Phyllis, to join us on this side to the bima, and grandparents, Didi and Alvin Katzman, on this side. So page 168. This is the Torah, Israel's covenant of truth and righteousness, transmitted through the long generations of our faith, from Moses to the prophets, from rabbis to disciples, from parents to children, and from the people Israel to the world. On this Shabbat, we continue that long chain of tradition, as in the presence of his grandparents and parents, Ezra receives the Torah as he becomes a bar mitzvah.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema
Yisrael,
Adonai
Eloheinu,
Adonai
Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kidosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Adonai iti, Adonai Shemo Yachad. To a place that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. Lech lecha, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lech lecha.
Baruch atah
I put on the talit. Read the English first.
I put on the talit as a reminder that I now become a responsible member of the Jewish people. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu v'vi'atei b'tzitzit.
Ezra, we are so very proud of you, not only because this is probably the first time we've seen you outside of your room for something other than scavenging for food and looking for a phone charger. And like most challenges you face, you've risen to the occasion. You have worked so very hard over the past few years, spending hours upon hours preparing for this day. As we often say in our house, McAfee's never give up. And over the past several months, you have really held close to that family motto. Not just in practicing for your bar mitzvah, but also in your honors classes at school, with 3 days a week soccer training and game schedules, not to mention doing all this during a time unlike any of us have ever experienced.
On the same day that Dad and I began working on this speech, I happened to be cleaning out a box that Graham D had given me from their house of my old stuff. And in this box was the speech that Graham D wrote for me on my bat mitzvah back in 1993. And she spoke the words on these cards to me at this very same spot. And it was really special, and it felt very serendipitous to find them on the day that we began to write this speech. And Dad and I used it as inspiration in preparing what to say to you today. You are an amazing human being. You are kind, caring, insanely smart, hilarious, and have an amazing work ethic, both academically and on the field. You are also incredibly compassionate.
Your kindness and openness to embrace others with love is something that comes natural to you. I don't know if you remember this or not, but on your first day of kindergarten and every day you rode the bus in elementary school, you gave your bus driver a hug. Every morning when you got on the bus, every afternoon when you got off the bus. And although I think your hugs are a little bit more reserved now for family and friends, we still see the same amount of natural kindness and compassion being expressed in your words and the way you interact with those around you.
You are also wildly imaginative and creative. There was the time when we were getting into the car to visit family, and Dad was sitting in the passenger seat. I was sliding you into your car seat, and as I buckled you up, you, who could speak in complete sentences at a very young age, said, "Mommy, where are we going?" I said, "We're going to play with your cousin, Jack." You were quiet for a moment and then asked, "Okay, what is he?" Is he a boy? Is he a fish? Is he a dog? After I told you he was indeed a boy, a human boy, we marveled at your imagination and adored the fact that in your mind, anything was possible, including that your cousin was a fish.
Now it's wonderful to see and share in your imagination in our discussions about book ideas, about aliens and multiverse theories, working together on logic puzzles or riddles, or creating detailed worlds for the strange creatures you come up with in your drawings.
I know it's becoming harder with each passing day to listen to our parenting. But if you remember nothing else of what we say today, remember this.
We wish you the strength to face challenges with confidence, along with the wisdom to choose your battles carefully.
We wish you adventure on your journey, and may you always stop to help someone along the way.
Listen to your heart and be confident in who you are and what you stand for.
Ezra, we love you. We are so very proud of you. We are here to support you along your journey ahead and cannot wait to see you pursue your dreams. As the Avett brothers wrote in one of our favorite songs, always remember there is nothing worth sharing like the love that let us share our name.
Thank you to all friends and family that were able to join us virtually to share this special occasion with us. We love you, we miss you, and cannot wait to see each of you in person, hopefully very soon.
We turn to the Torah reading for this Shabbat morning, and you may find the virtual resources available at bez613.org. We'd like to remind those of you who are doing Aliyot, Torah blessings from home, to be ready when announced. And at this point on the Bima, on the Torah reading table are Ezra, Jordan, and Dan. And the first honor goes to Ezra's parents, Jordan and Dan McAfee, and Ezra will be reading. We begin at chapter 2, verse 4 of the book of Genesis.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Eile toldot hashamayim v'ha'aretz v'hi bar'am b'yom asot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim v'chol siach hasadeh terem yihiyeh ba'aretz v'chol esav hasadeh terem yitzmach Ki Elohim etir Adonai Elohim al haaretz ve'adam ayin le'ovda et ha'adama ve'ein ya'aleh min haaretz ve'hishka et kol panei ha'adama vayitzer Adonai Elohim et ha'adam afar min ha'adama Vayipach be'apav nishmat chaim, Vayehi ha'adam lanefesh chaya, Vayitach Adonai Elohim gan be'eden mikeden, Vayasem esham et ha'adam asher yatzar, Vayitzmach Adonai Elohim min ha'adama Kol es nechmad lemar'eh v'tov lema'achal ve'es ha'chaim betoch hagan ve'es hada'at tov v'ra.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam netan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamot Shehim.
For the second Aliyah, which Ezra will continue to chant, we invite Big Dad, Alvin, and Gramdy, Dee Dee Katzman, Ezra's grandparents, in honor of great Grammy Phyllis Schwartz, great grandmother, and great Lee Rand, a special friend of the family who cannot be with us today, but who share in the joy.
Baruch Adonai Hamparach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamparach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
V'nachar yotzei me'eden lehashkot et hagan, umisham yipared v'chaya la'arba'a rashim, shem ha'echad pishon, hu ha'sovev et kol eretz ha'chavilav, asher sham ha'zechav, u'zechav ha'aretz ha'iv tov, Sham Havdolach ve'evan ha'shohan ve'shem ha'nahar ha'sheni dekel hu ha'sovev et kol eretz kush ve'shem ha'nahar ha'shlishi dekel hu ha'cholech kidmat ashur ve'hanahar harbi'i Hu parad vayikach Adonai Elohim et ha'adam vayinachem Adonai vegan Eden le'ovda u'l'shomera vayitzev Adonai Elohim al ha'adam lemor mechol et hagan achol tochel Ume'etz hada'at tovara lo tochal mimenu ki beyom achol lecha mimenu mot tamut Vayomer Adonai Elohim Lo Tohayot Ha'adam Levado Aselo Ezer Kenegdo Vayitzer Adonai Elohim Min Ha'adama Kol Chayot Hashadeh Ve'ein Kol Ov Hashamayim Vayave El Ha'adam Lirod Ma Yikra Lo V'Hol Asher Yikra Lo Ha'adam Nefesh Chayahu Shemo.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam notam b'torchenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ta'amot shlishi.
And for the third Aliyah, we invite Didi to remain at the Torah reading desk, the rest of the family to be seated. And by Zoom, we will invite to this Aliyah aunt, uncle, and cousin Aaron, Brent, and Evan Mundy. And they will be joining us in reciting the blessings at this point. Adonai mevorach leolam va'ed.
Amen. Vayikra ha'adam shemo l'chol habhema ul'och hashamayim ul'chol chayat hasadeh ul'adam lo matza ezer kenegdo vayapel Adonai Elohim tardema al ha'adam v'ishan v'yikach Chat mitzalotav v'yiskor basar tachtena vayiven Adonai Elohim et hatzelah asher lakach min ha'adam v'isha vayivi'eha el ha'adam vayomer ha'adam Zod hapam etzem me'atzamai uvasar mibsari lezot yikarei isha ki meish ukochazot al ken ya'azav ish et aviv v'et imo v'davak v'ishto v'hayu levasar echad v'yehiyu Shnehem arumim ha'adam v'ishto v'lo tihi bashashu.
Amen.
Amen.
And as
Ta'amot
Didi and Alvin return to their seats, the cantor will now continue with the chanting of the Torah. And for this Aliyah, we invite great aunt Ellen Katzman, who is zooming in from Florida, and she is representing the Katzman family, Bev and Butch Brown, Barrett Brown, Josh, and Becca Brown. Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'karmanu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ונחש היה הארור מכל חיית השדה אשר עשה אדוני אלוהים ויאמר אל האישה אף כי אמר אלוהים לא תאכלו מכל עץ הגן ותאמר האישה אל הנחש מפרי עץ הגן נאכל ומפרי העץ אשר בתוך הגן אמר אלוהים לא תאכלו ממנו ולא תיגעו בו פן תמותון ויאמר הנחש אל האישה לא תמותון כי יודע אלוהים כי ביום אכולכם ממנו ונפקחו עיניכם והייתם כאלוהים יודעי טוב ורע בטרם האישה כי טוב העץ למאכל וכי תבהי לעיניים ונחמת העץ להשכיל ותיקח מפריו ותאכל ותיתן גם לאישה עמה ויאכל ותפקחנה עיני שניהם וידעו כי עירומים הם ויתפרו עליה תאנה ויעשו להם חגורות.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chei olam noto b'tzedekenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
יישר כוח.
Ta'amot 50.
For the fifth Aliyah, which begins on verse 8 of chapter 3, we invite great aunt Wendy Schwartz from Minnesota, zooming in on behalf of the Schwartz family, Mark Wolf, Rachel Schmidt, and Leah Graff.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. She froze.
Amen.
Amen. וישמעו את קול אדוני אלוהים יתהלך בקהל לרוח היום ויתחבא האדם ואשתו מפני אדוני אלוהים בתוך עץ הגן ויקרא אדוני אלוהים אל האדם ויאמר לו אייכה ויאמר את קולך שמעתי בגן ואירא כי עירום אנוכי ואחווה ויאמר מי הגיד לך כי עירום אתה מן העץ אשר ציוויתיך לבלתי אכול ממנו אכלת ויאמר האדם האישה אשר נתת עמדי נתנה לי מן העץ ואוכל ויאמר אדוני אלוהים לאישה מה זאת עשית ותאמר האישה הנחש השיעני ואוכל ויאמר אדוני אלוהים אל הנחש כי עשית זאת ארור אתה מכל הבהמה ומכל חיית השדה ככל נחת לך ועפר תאכל כל ימי חייך ואיבה עשית בינך ובין האישה ובין זרעך ובין זרעה ישובך הראש ואתה תשובנו עקב.
Amen.
Amen.
יישר כוחך.
יעמוד שישי.
For the sixth Aliyah, we invite honorary aunt, uncle, and cousins Dan, Lisa, and Jordan Sage, who are zooming in from Massachusetts. Verse 16.
Make them switch screens. Dan Sage. There they are. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Amen. El Hayishamar Hara Arbe Yitzvunech Veheronech Be'etzevet Yildi Vanim Vel Ishech Tashukatech Vehu Yimeshulabach Uladam Amar Kishamat Lekol Ishtaka Vetochal Min ha'etz asher tziviticha lemor lo tochal mimenu avrura adama bavurecha ve'itzavona tochlana kol yamecha yacha vekotz vedardar tatzmiach lach ve'achalta et esav hasadeh בזיעת אפיך תאכל לחם עד שובך אל האדמה כי ממנה לוקחת כי עפר אתה ואל עפר תשוב ויקרא אדם שם אשתו חווה כי היא הייתה אם כל חי ויעש אדוני אלוהים לאדם ולאשתו כותנות אור וילבישם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam natan b'tohenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ta'amot Shvi'i.
For the seventh Aliyah, we invite cousins Maddie and Kennedy Mundy, who are here and will represent all the family who could not attend in person. And we use this opportunity to extend to Kennedy a happy birthday, Mazel Tov.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai Elohim Hein Adam haya ka'achat mimenu lada'at tova ra ve'ata peni shlach yado ve'lakakam me'etz ha'chaim ve'achal ve'chai le'olam v'shalchehu Adonai Elohim mikan eden lavod et ha'adama asher lukach misham v'yagaresh et ha'adam v'yashkein mikadem legan eden et ha'kruvim ve'et lahat ha'cherev המתהפכת לשמור את דרך את החיים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We will transition to the maftir with the Hatzi Kaddish. You may follow on page 174. Please rise.
ויתקדש מרבה בעלמא דבריו כרותבים נתמכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בהבנה ובבינה Ezra Avram, Ben Yardin Nechama v'Daniel, Bar HaMitzvah Maftir Chazak.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim. Venatan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Bayar Adonai Ki Rabbah Ra'at Ha'adam Ba'aret V'chol Eitzer Machshavo Libo Ra Kol Hayom Vayinachem Adonai Ki Asa Et Ha'adam Ba'aret Vayirat Seva Libo Vayomer Adonai Emeche Et Ha'adam Asher Barati Me'al Penei Ha'adamah Me'adam Ad Bechema Ad Remesh Ve'ad Of Hashamayim Ki Nichamti Ki Asiti Benoach Matzachein Be'enei Adonai. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chaye Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Rise as the Torah scroll is raised.
Bezot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Livnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai Beyad Moshe.
May be seated. Ezra will now chant the Haftarah that corresponds to this Shabbat. And it is a special Haftarah because today is the last day of the month, and tomorrow we begin the second month of the Hebrew year, the month of Cheshvan. So this is a Haftarah known as Machar Chodesh. Tomorrow is the new month. It's from the book of Samuel, chapter 20, beginning at verse 18. And you may follow in the Eitz Chaim or in the virtual resources at page 1216.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar B'nvi'im Tovim V'ratza V'divrechem Hane'emarim Be'emet Baruch Ata Adonai Habocher B'Torah U'Moshe Avdo U'Yisrael Amo U'Vinviei Ha'emet B'Tzedek. Vayomer lo Yehonatan Machar Chodesh V'nifkadeta Ki Yipaked Moshavecha V'shilashta Terei Me'od Uvata El Hamakom Asher Dibarnu Ani Sarta Sham Beyom Hama'aseh Ve'yashavata Eitzel Ha'emen Ha'azel Va'ani Sheloshet Hachitzim Sida Oreh Leshalach Li Lematara Vechine Eshlach Et Hanar Lech Metza Et Hachitzim Imamor, Omar Lanar, Hine Chachitzim Mimecha, Vachena, Kachenu Vavoach, Ki Shalom Lecha, Ve'ein Davar, Chai Adonai, Ve'imeko Omar La Elam, Hine Hahitzim, Mimecha Vechalach Lech, Ki Shalachacha Adonai, Behadavar Asher Dibarnu, Ani Va'ata, Hine Adonai, Beini Ubencha, Adolam. Vaisater David, Basadeh, Vayehi HaChodesh, Vayeshev HaMelech, El HaLechem, Le'echom. Vayeshev HaMelech, Al Moshavo, Kefa'am Befam, El Moshav Hakir, Vayakom Yehonatan, Vayeshev Avner, Mitzad Shaul, Vayipake, Mekom David, Velodi Ber Shaul, Me'uma, Veyom Hahu, Ki Amar Michrehu, Bilati Tahor, Hu, Kilo Tahor, Vayehi Mimochara HaChodesh Hasheni, Vayipake, Mekom David, Vayomer Shaul, El Yehonatan Beno, Medua, Lova Venishai, Gama Tamol Gama Chayom, El Halachem, Vayaan Yehonatan, Et Shaul, Nisho David, Me'imadi, Ad Beit Lachem, Vayomer, Shalacheni na, Kizeba, Mishpacha lanu ba'ir, Vehu sivali yachi, Ve'ata, Imamatzati chen be'enecha, Imotanam, Ve'eret et echai, Okain lova, El Shulchan HaMelech. Vayitain Yehonatan et Kelav El Hanar, Asher lo, Vayomer lo, Lech, Have Ha'ir, Hanar ba, David come, Me'etz El HaNegev, Vayipol Le'apav Artsa, Vayishtachu Shalosh Pa'atim, Vayishku Ish et Re'echu, Vayivku Ish et Re'echu, Ad David Higedil, Vayomer Yehonatan LeDavid, Lech LeShalom, Asher Nishbanu Shenenu Anachnu, Beshem Adonai Lemor, Adonai, Yihiyeh Beini Uvenecha, Uvein Zar Ir, Uvein Zar Aha, Adolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber u'mkayim, shechol devarav emet v'tzedek, ne'eman, atahu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ne'emanim devarecha, ve'devar echad midbarecha, Achor lo yashuv rekam, ki el melch ne'eman v'rachaman ata, baruch ata Adonai. Ha'el ha'ne'eman bechol devarav, rachem ol Tzion ki hi beit chayenu, ve'la aluvat nefesh toshia, ve'yad bimcheira ve'yamenu. Baruch ata Adonai, mesameach Sion bevanecha, samheinu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'eliyahu hanavi avdecha, u'malchut beit David meshichecha, imcheira yavo ve'yagel livenu, al kisto lo yeshev zar ve'lo yimchalu, od acherim et kevodo, ki b'shem kodshecha nishbata, shelo yichbene roch le'olam va'ed, baruch ata Adonai, Magen David, all ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hanvi'i ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatatan lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha ve'limnucha lechavod u'letifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvarchim otach yitbarach simecha befi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed baruch ata Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. Mazel Tov, Ezra. Beautiful. Before we return the Torah scroll to the Ark, we will recite the blessing for the new moon, which begins tomorrow, the new month. So I invite you to rise, page 180. May the new month bring renewal to our lives, the renewal of wonder, renewal of freedom, of love, of justice, of friendship, and a renewal of holiness and peace.
Mi
ראש חודש מר חשוון יהיה ביום ראשון וביום שני, הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל לטובה. The new month of Cheshvan will begin on Sunday and Monday of the coming week. May it hold blessings for us and for the household of Israel.
יקדשהו הקדוש ברוך הוא אלינו, אל כל ישראל המלכה, לחיים ולשלום, לששון ולשמחה, לישועה ולנחמה, ונאמר אמן.
A month of life and peace, of joy and gladness, of deliverance and consolation. And let us say Amen. We remain standing and we invite Bryce to come to the bima once again and to open the doors of the ark as we prepare to return the Torah to the Aron HaKodesh. As the ark is closed, you may be seated. Ezra will now share with us some thoughts that he has prepared about his Torah portion and the significance of this day in his life.
My Torah portion is Bereshit. The most interesting thing in my Torah portion is the verse that reads, God said, "Look, I have given you all of the seed-bearing plants on the face of the earth, and every tree that has in it seed-bearing fruit. These are yours to eat, and to every land animal, and to every bird of the sky, and to all that creeps on the earth, in which is the breath of life, I give all green vegetation for food." And so it was. The reason that this speaks to me is because it shows how God not only has provided us with everything we need to prosper, but also entrusted us with the responsibility to care for it. As people, we must take the steps we can, no matter how big or small, to care for the world around us. The verses also state that God has given us all these things, and so we have a responsibility to make sure everyone receives these things, not just the rich and not just the people who came from certain countries. As human beings, we must all work to help others that are less able to receive or have access to these gifts from God. Becoming a bar mitzvah is the Jewish act of entering adulthood and taking responsibility for myself. I'm going to become an adult with a promise that I will take care of the environment, a promise to take care for my loved ones, a promise to do the right thing even when no one is watching, a promise to pay attention to world problems even when they may not affect me, a promise to stand up for what I believe in, and a promise to never give up. Thank you, Rabbi Dennis and Rabbi Sandy, for being awesome role models. Thank you, Rabbi Jenny, for helping me so much on my speech. Thank you, Ken or Melissa, for helping me learn to chant blessings. Thank you, Mr. Lincoln, for helping me find my voice and not be super nervous. Thank you, George, and thank you all of my teachers. Thank you, Graham D. and Big Dad, for teaching me so many important life lessons. For example, you taught me how to play cards. You taught me all the possible ways you can get hurt on a diving board. You have also taught me how to persevere when things get tough and how to pay attention to what is going on. But most of all, you have taught me to be myself and to always be good to those around me. Thank you, Grammy and Poppy, for always being so kind and wonderful. You guys light up my day whenever I see you. The dictionary defines kindness as the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate. I define kindness as Grammy and Poppy. Thank you, Bryce, for being there for me all the time, even when I don't always need it. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for being the greatest parents in the world. There are so many times when you have helped me and changed my life for the better. I remember when I found out I had made the C team at soccer. I was devastated. You helped me get through that really tough moment. If I were a Jenga tower, then you would be the bottom blocks. If you have ever played Jenga, you would know that if you take out the bottom blocks, the tower would collapse. That is how I feel about you guys. You are truly the building blocks of the person that I am trying to become. Also, I want to acknowledge the fact that today is part of Kennedy Mundy's birthday weekend. Thank you for spending your birthday weekend with me. You are my fourth favorite cousin. I am incredibly proud to become a bar mitzvah at Beth-El Zedek. Thank you, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom.
Hi, Ezra. How are you feeling?
Happy.
Good. You should. Good reason. Well, Rabbi Sandy and I have known and been friends of your family from before your mother was born. We officiated at your mom's naming, her bat mitzvah, her confirmation, and have seen her grow to become a respected lawyer, a wonderful daughter and granddaughter, a wife, and a mother. For many years, we were neighbors of your Grandy and Big Dad, and our families celebrated holidays together. We traveled to New York together with the confirmation class, which your grandfather taught. And in fact, that talit that he is wearing today was bought during one of those trips, and I remember helping him pick it out. Well, today it is my pleasure to celebrate with you and your proud parents, Jordan and Dan, with your dear family, what is the fruits of generations of love, of caring, and of sharing. Your Grandy and Big Dad, your Poppy and Grammy, and of course we think of great Grammy Phyllis and Grand Lee, who cannot be here with us today, but are with you in love and in spirit. And your sister Bryce, and cousins Maddie and Kennedy add to your cheerleading crowd here today. Ezra, your Torah portion is about creation and new beginnings. Your becoming a bar mitzvah is a new beginning. It happens to fall on the Shabbat, which inaugurates a new month, so another new beginning. And like all beginnings, it does not stand alone. It is grounded on previous events, previous experiences, and previous memories. The Torah tells us not that God created the world from nothing, but from unformed stuff, from chaos, from disorder. Something like your bedroom, I understand. Well, just like you were born a new, unique, and distinct person, but were shaped from the genes and the history and the love of your parents and their families from generations, so we continue to create at each new moment, not out of nothing, but out of everything that came before us. Today, you add yourself to that roster of young people who assumed the life of responsibility, of mitzvah, of commitment to the teachings of Judaism. Ezra, you told me that in addition, well, your parents told me that in addition to being a good student, and you told me that you like math and science, and especially you said lunch hour, right? You are also an avid athlete and an accomplished soccer player. Well, becoming a bar mitzvah is like becoming part of a team. We call it a minyan. Soccer requires 11 people. A minyan requires 10. So we can think of you as that 11th man in between the minyan and the soccer team, the one who makes it all possible. And like in soccer, Judaism requires that we be team players in getting the ball to the goal. You've got to do good footwork, but you also have to know how to use your head. Well, you explained some soccer rules to me and told me that you played midfield. And I went ahead and I read that midfielders and goalies are considered the most difficult and most important positions in the game. As a midfielder, you have to have good control of the ball, passing ability, shielding and shooting skills. You have to have a vision of the whole field, and you have to feel comfortable under pressure. Thought I'd kick those ideas around. Ezra, I know that you are able to do all of these things, to use your head, to set your steps in the right direction, to be confident and cooperative as a team player, and to aim for meaningful goals. During our recent pre-bar mitzvah phone conversation, I asked you to describe yourself to me, and you were very modest in what you said. Your parents, of course, told me that you were intelligent, kind, and witty. And then your sister Bryce added, Ezra is very curious. I think that Bryce's comment was very insightful, because curiosity is the basis of creativity, of new beginnings, of new possibilities. So the lesson of this Shabbat Bereshit, this Shabbat of beginnings, is never stop being curious. Always look into new possibilities. Always consider new ways of getting to that goal and of helping your team, of fulfilling your hope, of helping to make the world a better, happier, and kinder team, Ezra. You can accomplish that from various angle shots in either of the two careers that you told me that you would consider in the years ahead. You told me you would like to become a famous soccer player, or then you said, or perhaps a scientist. I would say perhaps even both. You can kick that thought around. Mazel tov. We're so happy and so proud to celebrate with you. I'd like to offer a prayer of blessing on your behalf in the presence of your parents and grandparents. Mishe verach avotenu Avraham, Yitzhak, veYaakov, veimotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, veLeah, uYevarech et Ezra, Avram, ben Yardena, Nehama, veDaniel. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless you, Ezra, Abram, McAfee, who have today been called to the reading of the Torah and the Haftarah in token of your desire to live a worthy Jewish life. May God, who was with you from birth and enabled you to reach this day continue to be with you in the life that is before you. May it be God's will that you grow in health and in strength, in wisdom and in humility, in love and in loyalty, in faith and in courage, that you may ever be a joy to your parents, an honor to your people, a credit to your country, and a true servant of God. And let us say Amen. Invite the family to join me in the prayer that we say at joyous occasions. Shehecheyanu, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehecheyanu, V'kiyimanu, V'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed is the eternal God who has given you health, strength, and the privilege of celebrating this joyous day. We ask Mom and Dad to put their hands on your shoulder, and I'll offer the traditional blessing for a life of health, joys, and peace. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God be gracious to you and show you kindness. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God look with favor upon you and grant you and your sister and your parents and all your family a life of health, a life of joys, a life of peace. Mazel tov. You may kiss and hug the bar mitzvah. And I ask Dad to get that packet that is under the bima there. After you empty the contents, which are a prayer book for continued spiritual growing. No, you don't have to empty it now. When you go home.
Oh my God.
A Torah for continued study, a tzedakah box, and a kiddush cup. These are gifts from the sisterhood, from the men's club, from the rabbis in Cantor, and from the federation. We wish you a mazel tov. So I said when you go home and you can empty the contents and put them in the shelves and in the right place, then you can use the bag for a soccer practice or something. Another backpack to add to your collection. Mazel tov. We're very proud of you and delighted to celebrate this special day. I ask you to go back with Mom and Dad to your seats. And we're going to turn to the conclusion of the service, page 205. I invite you to rise for Aleinu.
ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
mourners and those who observe the anniversary of death of a loved one to remain standing for the mourner's Kaddish on page 207. And as we recite the Kaddish this evening, we honor the memories of those who have died in recent days and weeks: Margaret Peg Romano, Herbert Bolshever, Douglas Perry, Alice Berkowitz, Gloria Friedman, Emma Juliet Kraus. On this Shabbat, as a congregation, we honor the yortzites of Rabbi Sidney Steinman, who served the synagogue from 1961 to 1976, and of Cantor Myro Glass, who served the congregation from 1928 to 1956. And we also observe the Yortzeit of Rabbi Regina Jonas, who lived from 1902 to 1944. She was the first woman rabbi ordained in Berlin in 1935, and she perished in Auschwitz. The memory of our loved ones is for a blessing. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'olma divra kirute ve'yamlich malchute v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'le'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yipar ve'yitroman ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yitale ve'yithalal shemei dekudsha berichu ve'ela min kol birchata ve'shirata tushpechata ve'nechemata ta'amiran ve'alma ve'imru amen. Yehei shlamar Rabbah min shemaya ve'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. May God, the source of peace, grant peace and comfort to all who mourn, peace to the household of Israel and to all humanity. And let us say, Amen. It is my pleasure now to invite Cindy Harp, officer of our board, to zoom in with good words of greeting for our bar mitzvah and family, and with some brief announcements. At the end of the service, we invite you all to stay connected for a Zoom personal distant wave at Ezra and his family. So Cindy, then our closing song, and then our Zoom away.
Thank you, Rabbi. On behalf of the Board of Directors of Congregation Beth-El Zedek, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Shabbat morning services as well as Ezra's Bar Mitzvah. Ezra, you did a fabulous job, just like everybody knew you would. It was a pleasure having you in my classroom. You always had very thoughtful, profound things to say. I really have to say. I'm sure you'll go on to more wonderful things. So mazel tov to you and to your parents, Dan and Jordan, and your grandparents, Al and Dee Dee, Martin and Phyllis, as well as your great-grandmother, Phyllis Schwartz. Just a couple of quick things before we do the wave. I assume it's this one, not this one, but either way. Our adult education classes begin this Sunday, October 18th. We have Hebrew 1, More Than Aleph, 9 a.m. via Zoom with Dina David. We have Refreshing Judaism, 10 a.m. on Zoom with Rabbi Dennis. Please check the Beth-El website for Zoom links and resources. Also, I'd like to remind you of the Beth-El Zedek Spirit and Place program, Origins of Creativity, Channeling Creativity Under Constraints. Gee, I wonder what those could be. On Monday, November 9th at 7, the program will feature Dr. Larry Einhorn, Joanna Taft of the Harrison Arts Center, and our own Rabbi Dennis Sasso, and it will be moderated by Rabbi Sandy Sasso. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. And we want to invite you all to join in a rousing Adon Olam on page 211, and then to hang around. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Ezra, Mom and Dad, and we invite the grandparents and family to come and stand in front of the main computer there, and you can all see everybody saying hello and waving.
I think there's a video, actually.
First, the video.